Hi, everyone. This is Senator Tina Smith. Welcome to Tea with Tina. And today I have a really amazing guest, such an interesting person. I'm so happy to have you join me today, Representative Fue Lee.
Hi, Senator Smith. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this invitation, and I'm really excited about this conversation. And if I'm looking off screen, I'm trying to share this on my Facebook and social media too.
That's great. That's good. Well, the more the merrier, since we're all in this COVID world where we're being safe and not gathering in large groups, I really miss not having a chance to talk to people face to face as much as I love to. And so we started this tradition about a month or so ago of having these conversations. They're totally casual and informal, and it's just a good chance to have a real conversation. And we always start with having a little bit of something to drink. So today I have my mother's favorite tea, constant comment, hot tea. It's cold enough today. It feels like hot tea tastes good. Fue Lee, what are you having today?
So this morning I have ginger lemon just to help with the throat and the changing weather.
That's exactly right. Well, Representative Lee, you represent House District 59A, which is in North Minneapolis. Would you just start by telling us a little bit about your district? And I think it's such an interesting story. Also, you ran for office for the first time in 2016, I think, and you were 24. Is that right?
Yeah. So when I first made the decision to run for this seat, House District 59A, was back in 2015. So at that time, I was 24 years old. And by the time that we ran the election and everything like that, turned 25. And, I grew up in North Minneapolis. And for folks that may not know, I was actually born in a refugee camp in Thailand, one of 19 kids. So I'm the 15th. And, I grew
You're
up in
15 of 19?
15 of 19, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love my district, went through all of our public schools here. And I think that North Minneapolis is one of the most unique districts in the state of Minnesota, where we have very, strong people who have a lot of perseverance despite some of the adversities that we have here. And so it's just been a great honor to run and to represent the north side, where it's the state capital, and to really engage with my neighbors and our shared constituents on issues that they care about, and see what can we do to improve their lives and the lives of Minnesotans.
Yeah. I think people who don't know that much about 59A, that House district in North Minneapolis, might not have a very good feel for what an amazing, diverse district it is. So much happening, so much going on, so much creativity, so much entrepreneurship. I just, I love this part of our state. Tell people a little bit about kind of what the community is like.
So I like to claim every time when we're with my legislative colleagues that I probably have the most racially diverse district in the state of Minnesota. I think it's between myself and the Senator Representative Rena Moran, and so we like to go back and forth. And we have some corridors, business corridor on the north side, West Broadway, Lowry, and 44th Avenue, and it is thriving, but at the same time we face a lot of the some of the barriers to wealth that a lot of our communities, especially high communities of colors like mine and my district. And so I think there's opportunity for us as elected officials to really help bring some resources in to help. And I'm just glad and thankful to have both you and our federal delegation, at the U.S. Capitol, fighting on behalf of the people in North Minneapolis so that they could actually thrive. The businesses on West Broadway, we saw some of them took a hit with the unrest following the murder of George Floyd, but I know that with the partnership that we have with all of you at the federal level, and what we're doing over the state level, that we can actually rebuild North Minneapolis and actually transform so that we could have community members driven process, and businesses, and
Right.
a vision that's representative of the folks on the north side.
I love the way you talk about a community-driven process, because I think I've learned, a lot of time when you have communities like North Minneapolis that have been systemically underinvested in, and you see these gaps in income and wealth and investment that didn't just happen. I mean, that's the way the system was set up, so that the investment in the wealth building was happening in other places, in communities that was much more white communities than North Minneapolis. As we work to figure out how to address this systemic challenge, it has to be driven by the community. And too often, I think it sort of is done to the community in a way that only sort of furthers the kind of the trauma that people have experienced. And so I appreciate what you're saying about that.
Mm-hmm. And I completely agree. And I think that going forward, there's more opportunities for us to be involved and engaged. And so, it's so exciting to have, like I said before, all of you at the federal level to help us, push for some initiative that, are community driven, right now, and I'm excited to learn about, your proposal for, reimagining law enforcement. And I think that there's opportunities for us to work with some of the local organizations who have been on the ground, fighting to, provide for greater public safety, and, are asking. And right now we had to put them at the forefront. And so, this community process is really needed. And so we're thankful for that.
Yeah. Well, as we were after the murder of George Floyd and all of the I think there were so many people in our state and in our country that just could not look away from that horrible scene of George's murder. And it, of course, tragically, this is, we've seen so many people murdered, so many Black people, brown people, Indigenous people murdered. I mean, it's awful, but we couldn't look away. And out of that, I think there was this real strong sense of like, how do we really reimagine what public safety looks like in a community? Imagine a world where everybody in the community can feel safe in their home and in their neighborhoods and in their communities. And we are able to build a level of trust between law enforcement and the community that sadly just doesn't exist in many parts of the country and in many parts of our city. And this is really driven home to me when I heard so many stories of people, people of color who would, you see the flashing lights in your rearview mirror, and instead of having a sense of safety and somebody is there to help me, you have a sense of fear and worry that this is going to end up going very, very badly. And out of that, and all of the conversations that I've had with people, both nationally, but especially here in Minnesota, I drew up this really, it's like a white paper for what it would mean to have public safety that truly keeps everybody safe. And a lot of it has to do with increasing accountability for police departments and making sure that, of course, that we get rid of these, chokeholds and no-knock warrants that resulted in that was what was used when Breonna Taylor was murdered in her own bed. A lot of it also has to do with ending this system of kind of qualified immunity, where police officers it's so difficult to hold officers who break the law or violate people's rights or use excessive force to hold them accountable for their actions. But a lot of what I also wanted to do in my plan was to think about how we can stop criminalizing the behavior, stop criminalizing things like criminalizing things that happen to people when they don't have a safe place to live, when they are having issues with mental health or substance abuse disorder. And we too often send the police officers in to resolve those issues. And that ends up just being so terribly dangerous. So those are the kinds of things that I was working on that I wanted to kind of capture in my proposals. And one thing I'm excited about with it is that it includes an idea that, as you were talking about community-driven solutions, I so believe that. And so I have introduced legislation at the federal level that would provide sort of innovation grants for innovative ways that local communities come up with to increase public safety, that through my grant program would be able to fund those efforts. And I think that that's a really great approach and something that I've heard a lot about from people on the north side and all over the state.
It is, and I'm glad that you do have that in your proposal, and that's what we're hearing on the ground level in Minneapolis too. And I just had a conversation with Commissioner John Harrington from the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, and exactly to your point, Senator, where this past two legislative session at the state level, we were trying to push for some of that funding to get into our community-driven process and to let these community-led organizations do the work that they know and how to do. But we got a lot of pushback, and so I'm just glad that if you could get that done, and push it through the federal level, that we can get some of the resources down to our folks here, and so that we could free some of the state resources to address other needs. And
Yeah.
in addition to this piece of your proposal, what I'm really excited about your proposal is that it's taking a very holistic approach to public safety, where you're trying to address some of the issues that we're seeing around public health, around education, and seeing how can we address that. And those are the issues that we're hearing from some of these organizations on the ground, saying, hey, what are we doing for jobs placement program? What are we doing to educate our students? And so I'm just glad that you're taking a holistic approach to this, reimagining public safety.
Well, I was talking with a group of African-American pastors this morning, and we were talking about how we focus on policing, and then we even focus on violence in the community. But really, those two issues, while extremely important, are symptoms of the deeper issues that we have in community about lack of opportunity, and the systemic discrimination that we still see in healthcare and housing, and those are the root issues that we have to see, and then we have to take action on and change the policies that have built that system, I think.
Right. I completely agree with that.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, your story of how you were elected to the state legislature. It really depended a lot on reaching out and engaging voters that might not have had a lot of trust in the system, voters that were younger, voters that weren't maybe as engaged weren't as engaged, didn't really feel like the legislature or elected officials were talking to them and really saw them. And I'd love to hear what advice you would give as we approach this most important election, what advice you would give about how best to do that work as an organizer.
Right. And, it is a little bit tough right now in the time of COVID, but as an organizer, even before running for office, I just love getting out there to talk to my neighbors about just issues that they care about, And when I first started, I was an organizer. I don't know if I should be doing this or not. I told the people I meet at the doors, I don't care who you vote for. If you don't want to vote for my candidate, as long as you just get out there to vote. Because, growing up on the north side, oftentimes, I just felt like politicians were just there to, get our votes and then just leave. And when I actually got out there and talked to neighbors, they have a lot of issues that they want to share. And, it's so important for us to be civically engaged, and, whether that's supporting a particular candidate or a particular issue, we just need to get out there and make our voices heard. And so as we move forward, I know that your team and, the DFL coordinated campaign and even the House caucus were, invested in a lot of our communities, especially those that are not traditionally represented. And, we're investing in canvassers, organizers who get in there. And so I would just continue to have our organizers and canvassers, do the best that they can, whether during this time, it's hard for us to get to the doors, but through phone calls, through words of mouth. We know that some of these communities, we have similar places of gathering. Just getting out there to put our brand and our value out there, I think is so critical right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, in implicit in what you're saying is that organizing is really about building relationships. It's not about a transactional, like I show up, I ask for your vote, you give me your vote, and then we move on until the next time we have an election, which is the transactional way of approaching it. Is really about building a relationship, and that's building a movement for change over the long run. And I think that too often gets missed in the way that we think about organizing, but it's absolutely crucial. And everybody knows that feeling when somebody shows up right before an election and says, hey, I'm here to tell you how great you are and how great I am, and now will you vote for me? Rather than really making the commitment to knowing the community, building relationships, and being there for the long haul, not just coming, but coming back again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, one example that I always used my first time around in 2016 was that I actually got a Trump supporter to vote for me because, he said that I was the only candidate that actually, showed up and voted and supported and showed up to his door and just had that conversation. And so, I think that shows a lot about that brand, Senator, about just building that relationship that we have with our community member, whether they support us politically or not, because we don't know. At the end of the day, I think just, being there, being able to empathize with some of the concerns that our residents and our constituents have.
Right, right. I often feel when I'm out talking to people all over the state that, um, well, I will often say, people don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm a Democrat and I'm trying to fix breakfast, or I'm a
Mhm.
Republican and I need to get my kids to school. They really are thinking about how to make their lives work. And if you can meet them there, you will learn so much about them and what is happening in their lives. And then you can be a much better representative of them and their interests, because you are actually listening, and then you can turn that listening into action. To me, that's sort of the empathy to action pathway that has kind of gotten lost in politics, that is all about scoring points.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yep.
What do you think of when you're visiting with people in your district? What are the top, handful of issues that are on people's minds right now?
So, probably the top one we spoke to before, public safety. Another
Yeah.
issue that I have really taken a lead on over at the legislature that, when I first went into 16, did not really think it was environmental issues, especially environmental justice,
Hmm.
where, Senator, you do know this, being right next to the Mississippi River and having a lot of industrial, corporations on the riverfront. Some of the health disparities that we see on the north side is probably some of the worst throughout the state of Minnesota, having some of the
Hmm.
highest lead level concentration. And so I have taken a role and see what can we do to really get our corporate neighbors to really work with our citizens and our community members to be more responsible and to really take a look at how are they contributing to the health and well-being of our neighbors. And so as we move forward, I would love to work with you in your office on what can we do to really strengthen some of our environmental regulation or environmental justice law, so that we can help these communities who traditionally aren't able to be at the table, because oftentimes we don't understand or know the process to be in front of Representative Lee or Senator Smith. And so uh,
Hmm.
I think there's an opportunity for us to collaborate around environmental justice.
I think I would love to work with you on that. And in the Senate, I have made working on climate action one of my most important priorities, along with racial justice and social justice, and they go hand in hand. And I think that it is so important as we think about the impacts of climate change on communities, and how, again, climate change disproportionately is impacting communities that have already faced barriers because of lack of access to opportunity and income and wealth building opportunities. And so it's not, I think it is a growing part of the conversation about how we go about addressing climate, so that as we do that, we are creating more opportunity for people, and we are hearing from the voices of folks that are most impacted by it. So I think there's a lot of common ground there that we could work on together.
Definitely, and there's a lot of I would say some of the more some of the activists that I know on the north side has been focusing on environmental justice. And I think just getting them to be in contact with you, they will love the opportunity to provide you the perspective on the ground over here, so that we could really work to improve the lives of everyone over here. And it's
Mhm.
exciting, right now. It is disturbing that we have to worry about climate change, but we have some opportunity and we have folks on the ground who's ready to do that work. And so I'm really hopeful for the next few years and see what we can
Yeah.
do collaboratively together.
Well, it is just a true fact that in Congress right now, the Republican Party, and I'm not even being partisan about this, I'm just stating the facts, the Republican Party has become a massive barrier to taking any positive action on climate change. And not only that, but they are, Trump and this administration have rolled back just common sense policies to encourage renewable fuels, and pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accords, and just a whole range of issues that they're even like literally fought by industry because they see it as being destabilizing to their
Mhm.
overall plans. So the opportunity to win this election and be able to take simultaneous action on social justice and racial justice and climate is just so exciting to me, and so desperately needed, because in this moment, we will look at the fires and the floods, but especially the fires on the West Coast, and it's like Armageddon.
Mhm. Yeah, even like some of the floodings that you mentioned, this year I had the opportunity to serve as the vice chair of the Capital Investment Committee, and as we travel throughout the state of Minnesota to look at capital infrastructure requests, one of the top issue is the rising water that we're seeing, and so we do really need to look and evaluate, how are we contributing to this climate change that are, creating rising water, and now that with all of that and the impact that it has on our public infrastructure and the money that we're putting in, could be used for other areas of needs throughout the state.
Yeah, absolutely. Fue Lee, tell me how, I know we just have a few more minutes. I wanted to ask you how this COVID pandemic has affected your district and your community, and what has it been like?
COVID has been tough. It has impacted a lot of the small businesses that we have, and on top of that, the civil unrest after the murder of George Floyd. People are, recovering, but it's slowly, and so whatever we can do, at the state level and federal level to help out, I think it'll be great. But we have seen on the ground that the residents of the North Side are really resilient, and working together with the West Broadway Business Coalition and some of the other business group over here, they have been able to raise, I believe, over $3 million to help support small businesses, especially our businesses, Black and Brown communities, from Indigenous communities. And so I think that it's exciting to see community members coming together, but there's much more that we as public official we need to do to bring in some resources to help with some of these underwhelming or overwhelming needs that we have in our community.
Right. Well, this is something that I'm so concerned about. There frankly is a lack of urgency right now in Washington around the needs that people have. I think especially as we move into the fall, we have so many people that are experiencing homelessness and people who've lost their jobs, and I worry about them being able to stay in their homes. And there are some basic human needs that we have to figure out how to meet in all communities. But this is, of course, again, is we know that infection rates and death rates are higher in communities of color, and so the need is so great. And I'm sure that you're seeing that in you're in the community.
We are, Senator, and I think that's a great point, and whatever you can help in providing some resources from the federal level down to the state, so that we can get more, even just testing, where right now we're seeing that our African American community is 6 times more likely than white Minnesotans to get COVID-19, and our Latinx community are 7 times more likely. And so whatever we could do to get more testings into the state, I think that's really needed. And throughout my district, there's only 3 testing sites. And I'm very fortunate that our administration are working with our local, faith-based group, community organizations to do additional sites. And so it is definitely needed. And so I'm just glad that, we're able to have this conversation about the need that we have here.
We need more testing. We need more personal protective equipment for essential workers. We need to make sure that all testing is free for everybody, no matter who you are. We need to make sure that the vaccine, when we know that it's safe and effective and ready, is free for everyone. That's a piece of legislation I'm working on. And I think we desperately need to get more individual help to people and to small businesses. And these are all the things that we have to get working on. You and I could talk about all of this for easily another half an hour. We have so much common ground and so many things that we want to work on together. But I'm just so grateful for you. And I think we have to remind everybody that early voting starts in Minnesota a week from yesterday on September 18th, right? So I hope everyone who's watching is getting a plan to vote early. If you possibly can, either by mail or in person. This is the most important election in my lifetime. And I bet you feel the same way, Representative Lee.
I do. And right now I'm doing my best to encourage, friends, family, and constituents to get out there. Like you said, Senator, we had to vote early. We just don't know with what they have been doing over at the federal level with, the United States Postal Service. Thank you for taking the lead on, ensuring that when we got our ballot and we sent it in, that it's going to be counted. And so we're so grateful for that. And just want to encourage you, like you said, the folks watching, for them to start, registering to vote right now, mnvotes.org, and you can apply for your absentee ballots.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Fue Lee. So good to spend time with you. Take care.
Thank you, Senator.